Socrates, the Greek philosopher. Socrates, one of the most celebrated figures in Western philosophy, was born around 470 BC in Athens, Greece, and is often regarded as the father of Western philosophy. His life and ideas have profoundly influenced subsequent philosophical thought, though he left no writings of his own. Everything we know about him comes from the accounts of later writers, primarily his disciples Plato and Xenophon, as well as the playwright Aristophanes, who offers a more satirical view. Socrates was born into a modest family in Athens. His father, Sophroniskes, was a stonemason, and his mother, Phaenarete, was a midwife. It is likely that Socrates received a basic education in poetry, music, and gymnastics, as was common for Athenian youths. He may have followed his father's trade as a stonemason in his early years, though little is known about his youth. His marriage to Xantippe, with whom he had 3 sons, is better documented, though their relationship is often portrayed as strained, particularly in the context of Socrates' unconventional lifestyle and philosophies. Socrates did not consider himself a teacher in the traditional sense, nor did he claim to possess special knowledge. Instead, he dedicated his life to the pursuit of wisdom and ethical living, often challenging the status quo and engaging his fellow citizens in dialogue. His preferred method of inquiry, now known as the Socratic method, involved asking a series of probing questions designed to expose contradictions in a person's thoughts or beliefs. This method aimed to stimulate critical thinking and illuminate the truth through reasoned dialogue. Rather than lecture or impart knowledge, Socrates believed in the value of self-examination and the pursuit of virtue. He famously asserted that the unexamined life is not worth living, reflecting his commitment to understanding justice, truth, and the nature of the good life. He wandered the streets of Athens, engaging in discussions with people from all walks of life, from politicians and poets to craftsmen and young students. Socrates' philosophy focused on ethics and human behavior rather than the physical world, which was the primary concern of earlier pre-Socratic philosophers. He believed that the greatest aim of human life was to cultivate the soul by pursuing virtue and wisdom, which he equated with knowledge. In contrast, ignorance, according to Socrates, led to moral failures and unhappiness. He argued that no one willingly does evil. Rather, people commit wrongs out of ignorance of what is truly good. Socrates held a deep skepticism toward conventional wisdom and the authority of the political and cultural elite. He questioned widely accepted norms, including the moral values of Athenian society, and was unafraid to challenge the assumptions of those in power. This often made him unpopular among the establishment, despite the admiration he commanded from many of his students. Socrates' challenging of Athenian authority ultimately led to his trial in 399 BC. He was charged with impiety, specifically not believing in the gods of the city, and corrupting the youth of Athens through his teachings. At his trial, Socrates offered a spirited defense, in which he refused to abandon his philosophical mission or flatter the court. He argued that he was fulfilling a divine mission to examine human life and called himself a gadfly, sent to stir the Athenian state from its complacency. Despite his eloquent defense, Socrates was found guilty by a narrow margin and sentenced to death by drinking a mixture containing hemlock, a poisonous plant. He spent his last days in prison, where he continued to converse with friends and followers, showing no fear of death. In Plato's Phaedo, Socrates is portrayed as calmly discussing the immortality of the soul before drinking the hemlock and passing away in the presence of his disciples. Socrates' death marked a turning point in Athenian philosophy, and his legacy has endured for over 2 millennia. Plato, his most famous student, immortalized Socrates in his dialogues, portraying him as a wise, humble figure who sought truth above all else. Through these works, Socrates became a symbol of intellectual integrity and moral courage. The ideas and methods attributed to Socrates laid the groundwork for the development of Western philosophical traditions, especially in ethics and epistemology. His insistence on questioning assumptions and his belief in reasoned dialogue remain central to the philosophical enterprise. He is celebrated not only for the depth of his ideas but also for his willingness to live and die by the principles he espoused.